Hi. My name's Adeline, and on the morning of our company's anniversary, my own sister smiled, said we should reconnect, then drove me to a waterfall, and pushed me in. She thought I couldn't swim. She thought I'd just disappear. But the next day, while she stood on stage claiming she built it all, she found a black box on her desk. No note, no warning, just the truth. Before we dive in, tell me, what time are you listening to this, and where from? Because by the end, you might be asking yourself, what would I have left in that box? I got to the office early that morning. The street lamps were still on when I pulled into the lot, and my coffee hadn't even cooled yet. I remember thinking, today's the day they'll finally say it out loud. The anniversary banner was already draped across the lobby. 15 years of bold vision. My heels echoed through the hall as I passed the framed photos. The founding moments. They used to show the two of us side by side, one with Isolde holding the mock-up label, one with me next to a shipment tracker, hands full of bubble wrap and a grin on my face. Now, my frame was missing. Literally. There was a blank square of paint where it used to hang. At first I thought maybe they were updating it, new design, maybe a digital version, but I felt something tighten in my stomach. That quiet, familiar squeeze that happens when you realize something's wrong, but it's already too late to stop it. I headed to the boardroom. That's where the morning prep meeting was supposed to be. Final walkthrough for the anniversary gala. I wasn't on the invite, but I'd been in every one of these since we started in my basement. No one needed to invite me back then. A printed seating chart was taped to the whiteboard. Executive Presentation Order. There were 6 names. Mine wasn't one of them. I stood there, reading it again just to be sure. Isolde, co-founder and CEO. Matteo, head of marketing. Fiona, head of product. Even Ethan, the junior legal guy who joined 2 years ago, was slotted for a 5-minute growth culture talk. But not me. The assistant, a girl named Hannah I'd hired myself, walked past me without saying hello. Just a glance, brief and professional, like I was a guest. Trying to ignore the sting, I pulled out my phone and checked the latest internal HR memo, the kind they post in the shared drive but never send directly. There it was, Adeline Shipley, updated title, Operations Advisor, non-executive, honorary. My fingers went cold, no notice, no meeting, no conversation. I walked toward my office. The hallway felt longer than usual. My chest was doing that thing where it feels like you're walking underwater, every step heavier. When I opened the door, I just stood there. It was empty. No monitor, no framed launch sketches, not even my chair. Instead, a sticky note was taped to the desk. Temporary desk reassignment, room B3. That's all it said. No name, no signature, no explanation. I looked around. The walls were bare. The desk drawers hung open, empty. Even the ceramic paperweight my niece gave me was gone. I didn't scream, didn't storm into HR. That's not who I am. I picked up my bag, walked slowly down the hall, and took the stairs. Quietly, because part of me didn't want to be seen. Like being invisible was safer than being pitied. Room B3 was downstairs, past the IT closet, next to the storage hallway. It used to be where we kept expired snacks and spare light bulbs. Now someone had thrown in a metal desk and a wobbling office chair. No window, no plaque. Just one empty drawer and a dead power strip. I sat down. The chair creaked like it knew I didn't belong there. I unclipped the silver pin from my coat lapel, the one shaped like a teardrop. Mom gave it to me on our launch day, back when she still answered my calls. I held it in my palm and stared at it like it had something to say. Maybe it was just a clerical error, a mix-up. Maybe someone forgot to update the doc. Maybe I was overthinking it, but deep down, I knew. I pulled out my laptop and started typing an email to HR. Hi, Janice. I noticed some changes to my title and office space. Just wanted to... Then I stopped. My finger hovered over the keys. I highlighted the sentence, then hit backspace. If I sent that message, I'd be the difficult one. The overly sensitive sister. The one who always made things awkward. so I saved the draft, closed the screen, and stared at the dusty floor tiles. No one had to yell. No one needed to fire me. They just quietly rewrote the story and left me out of the new version. They didn't just forget me, they're unwriting me. That line kept echoing in my head long after I left the supply closet. I replayed it as I made myself a late dinner, as I ran the dishwasher, even while brushing my teeth. It had sunk so deep that when I tapped my phone the next morning, I almost didn't register the banner notification glowing on the screen. And reminder, company gala, dress code, formal. Founders expected on stage at 7:30 p.m. I stared at it, thumb hovering. So they still had me in the mailing list. That, or someone forgot to remove me from this too. For a moment I considered deleting it, but instead I tapped Mark Unread and let it sit there, like a dare. Later that night I stood in my kitchen, the lights dimmed, my heels echoing softly against the tile as I practiced my speech to no one. I'd written and rewritten it a dozen times. It wasn't long, just enough to thank the team, the early investors, and Isolde. Yes, even her. I wasn't looking for applause. I just didn't want to disappear without saying something real. The teardrop pin lay beside my phone on the counter, the silver dulled from years of wear. I picked it up, turned it over in my palm. It used to shine brighter. So did I. That afternoon, I ironed my navy blue dress, the one with sleeves that always made me feel steady. Not flashy, but solid, reliable. By 6:30, I was pulling into the underground garage of the downtown venue. A valet opened the door and gave me a quick smile, but no recognition. The event hall was already buzzing when I stepped in. Glass chandeliers lit up every corner, casting golden halos over tables covered in champagne flutes. Strings of soft jazz floated through the air. The air was thick with perfume, ambition, and something sharper, curated history. A staff member at the front greeted me with a smile, holding out a folded program. Founders Edition, it said in embossed print. I opened it. 6 names: Isolde, Matteo, Fiona, Ethan, a board advisor, and one of our early seed partners. I flipped to the back. There was a section titled Our Journey. My name didn't appear once. I closed it slowly. From somewhere behind me, a voice, barely more than a whisper. Wait, isn't that her? I thought she was like logistics or something, not a founder. I turned my head. 2 junior staffers, probably in their mid-20s, giggling behind their glasses of rosé. When they noticed I'd heard, they froze. One muttered, "Sorry," and looked away. I smiled. Not out of kindness, just habit. I walked through the room quietly, weaving between clusters of people who didn't look up. My heels made no sound on the carpet, like even my footsteps had been muted. At exactly 7:30, the lights dimmed. A spotlight snapped onto the stage. And then I saw her. Isolde, my sister. Her champagne-colored gown shimmered under the stage lights. She held the mic with both hands like it belonged to her. She didn't glance into the crowd, didn't search for me. 1 year ago, she began. I stood on this very stage, unsure of everything except one thing, that I had to make something out of nothing. The crowd broke into applause. She smiled. I built this with grit, vision, and the belief that anything, absolutely anything, is possible when you fight for it. There was no we. No mention of our late nights in my garage, no nod to the sketches on my fridge, no recognition of the 5 years I spent hauling product, negotiating with manufacturers, or answering customer support emails at 2 in the morning. She stood there, glimmering with borrowed light, and rewrote the story as if I had never existed. When the room stood up in ovation, I didn't move. I just stared at her. How easily she lied. How confidently. Afterward, as the room swelled with laughter and clinking glasses, I made my way toward the back exit. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to smile. I just wanted air. And that's when I heard her voice behind me. "There you are." I turned. Isolde stood alone, wine glass in hand, lips painted just right, not a hair out of place. "I was wondering if you'd come," she said, tilting her head. "You look nice." I kept my voice even. Why didn't you mention me? She blinked. Excuse me. On stage. You erased everything we did together. Why? There was a pause, just a beat, and then she smiled softly. We needed you when we were desperate. Now, we're not. She said it like she was explaining a weather report, calm, certain. The words didn't hit like a slap. They landed like something heavier, something that had been building for years, waiting for this moment to fall. I didn't say anything else. What was the point? Instead, I nodded, walked past her. I stepped outside into the evening air. The city was lit up, cars rolling through intersections, neon signs flickering against old brick buildings. I caught my reflection in the glass door, faint, distorted, like I'd already started fading. I reached up to unfasten the teardrop pin from my dress. My fingers hesitated, then I left it there. Not yet. I wasn't ready to let go. Turns out silence has a breaking point too. 2 days later, Isolde texted me. Let's take a breather. Just us. No team. No mess. Sister's Day? She added a heart emoji at the end. I stared at the message longer than I needed to. Part of me knew better. But another part, one that still remembered the late nights, the shared ramen bowls, the time we signed our first order contract barefoot in my garage, wanted to believe she was reaching out, not to rewrite, but to reconnect. So I said yes. She picked me up the next morning just after 10. The air was misty, like it hadn't decided if it wanted to be fog or rain. She rolled down the passenger window before I even shut the door and chirped, "Thought we'd visit where it all began." Multnomah Falls, I said softly. She nodded, pushing her sunglasses up like a movie star. Figured we could do a little full circle moment. New chapters, right? The drive was quiet at first. Trees blurred past us, still holding on to the last of their autumn rust. She played soft folk music on the radio, something nostalgic, like she was curating the moment on purpose. I know things have been tense, she said finally, halfway up the winding road. But this year's been hard on both of us. Growth does that. I want to make peace with the past. I didn't respond right away. I just watched her hands on the wheel. Her nails were freshly painted. No nervous tapping, no hesitation in her voice. But everything still felt off. When we arrived, the trail was nearly empty. Only a few tourists scattered near the base, holding up phones, taking pictures through the fog. The stone path curved up toward the lookout point. Isolde walked ahead, her boots too clean for the muddy trail. I followed slowly, carefully. She talked the whole time about the acquisition announcement coming up, the firm's interest in young, visionary-led brands, how the press loved the image of a lone founder. And hey, she added, throwing a glance over her shoulder, maybe this opens a door for you too. You've always wanted to consult, right? I didn't answer. My breath was starting to come shorter with the climb. We reached the edge just as the wind picked up, pushing fog into our faces. The falls roared below, cascading down the cliff like liquid thunder. I wrapped my coat tighter. Isolde stood near the railing, arms crossed, hair whipping around her face. It's funny, she said, not looking at me. 1 year since we launched, and I still feel trapped. I stepped beside her. Trapped how? She turned. Her eyes met mine, calm, almost tender. Then I felt her hand press against my back. It was light at first, like a nudge. Finally, she whispered, I'm free. And she shoved. The railing was too low, the rocks too slick. I slipped before I could even cry out. There was no scream, just air. And then water. Everything disappeared in white sound. Cold swallowed me whole. I hit something hard, stone maybe, and then again. My body twisted underwater, limbs flailing for purchase. My coat dragged me down, my head cracked against something. For a moment, I didn't know which way was up. Then instinct kicked in. I kicked, I clawed, my lungs burned, my ears rang. When I finally surfaced, I gasped so violently I choked. The current tried to pull me, but I managed to drift toward the edge, half swimming, half sinking, until I reached a patch of moss and roots. I dug my fingers into the mud, pulling myself up inch by inch, my nails snapping, my knees scraping against stone. The pain didn't register yet, only the cold. I collapsed beneath a low overhang, half cave, half crevice, shivering so hard my jaw ached. I turned over on my side and vomited up half the river. Then I lay there, staring at nothing. "She left me," I whispered. My voice was hoarse, barely a sound. She actually left me. I reached for my phone, still strapped inside my waterproof pouch, waterlogged, no bars. The screen flickered once and died. I waited under that overhang until the sun began to move again. Then I stood, barely, and started walking. The trail wasn't marked from that side. I followed a logging road, half hobbling, half stumbling. I passed no cars, no hikers, no one. When I finally reached the ranger station nearly 5 miles later, I lied. "I slipped. Just a dumb accident," I told the man at the desk. He wanted to call an ambulance. I declined. "Just need to get home," I said. And I did. I took the regional bus back to Portland in soaking clothes. The other passengers avoided eye contact. At home, I sat on the floor of my shower for over an hour. Hot water didn't feel hot. My knees were bruised, my back was scraped raw. But none of that hurt as much as what I now knew. She hadn't pushed me because of business. She pushed me because I was still there, still breathing, still in the frame, still a threat to her version of the story. And the worst part? She was counting on my silence. But I didn't drown. I came to on someone's porch, lying on a sun-warmed blanket that smelled faintly of cedar and detergent. A woman with kind eyes and graying curls offered me a chipped mug of tea. Her husband hovered nearby, holding out a bag of dry clothes. "We found you curled up near the service road," the woman said gently. "You looked like you'd seen a ghost." I managed a nod. My voice hadn't come back yet, but my mind was already spinning. She left me to die. And then went on with the party. I sat quietly for another half hour, sipping just enough tea to soothe the ache in my throat. Then I stood, thanked them, and asked if I could borrow a hoodie. Maybe sunglasses, too. They didn't press. The man handed over a thick zip-up that smelled faintly of tobacco. I slipped it on, pulled the hood low, and stepped out into the daylight. It was nearly noon when I called a rideshare from the edge of the highway, using the woman's old phone. I didn't give my name. I gave them the corner near the service entrance of the company building. Not because I was hiding, because I wanted to see what they did when they thought I was gone. The building was alive with chatter. Inside the back stairwell, I could hear someone giving instructions. Quick, clipped, excited. I crept up 3 floors and paused beside a door that led into one of the smaller meeting rooms. It was cracked open. "So with Odelin's role now considered closed, we're moving forward with the full rebrand," a voice said. I recognized it. Isolde's new marketing head, the one who joined 6 months ago, never once speaking directly to me. Another voice chimed in. "Isolde is prepping the Forbes interview now. They want a solo profile, the sole visionary who reinvented female leadership." Laughter. "She always had that vibe," someone said. "Like magnetic, not like the other one. What was her name again?" My throat tightened. I slipped away before I heard the rest. My legs moved on their own, down the hall toward the main lobby. And there it was. A new plaque mounted beside the front doors. Founded by Isolde Marin, a story of fearless reinvention. Underneath it, etched into glass, was a stylized timeline, launch date, seed funding, press coverage, milestones, all anchored by Isolde's photo. I watched as a junior tech guy climbed a stepladder and removed one of the final remaining pieces of the old display. A photo of our original warehouse ribbon cutting. My face front and center, hand on the scissors, Isolde beside me. He replaced it with a stock photo of a handshake between 2 faceless suits. The receptionist glanced at me, then back to her screen. No flicker of recognition. I might as well have been delivering food. I turned, slowly, the building blurring at the edges. Part of me wanted to walk away right then, just vanish. What's the point of fighting for something no one wants to remember you for? I made it to the glass vestibule before I froze. Inside one of the conference rooms, through the tinted panel, I saw Camilla, the newest hire in HR, maybe 24, still learning names. She was raising her hand to speak. No one looked at her. When she finally spoke anyway, someone cut her off mid-sentence. Then they moved on, as if she hadn't said anything at all. I recognized the expression on her face. I'd worn it for years. I stopped moving. Later that night, back at my apartment, I dug through my storage closet and pulled out the old company laptop. It was dusty, slower than I remembered, but it still powered on, and more importantly, still connected to the server. I sat cross-legged on my couch, hair still damp from another long shower, and began the quiet work of gathering everything. Calendar invites, contract drafts, strategy decks, Slack messages, investor correspondence, receipts from my own checking account, covering company bills when we couldn't make payroll the first quarter. My hand trembled once, just once. I stopped and stared at the screen. If I stay silent, I become the ghost they want me to be. And I've never been good at being invisible. So I started downloading everything they thought I forgot. My apartment was dark, except for the blue light bleeding from my screen. I sat curled up on the couch, wearing the same hoodie the old couple had lent me. It still smelled like someone else's home. My fingers clicked across the trackpad, pulling open one PDF after another, drafts of contracts, emails, old onboarding guides I remembered writing. Every document felt like a time capsule. Every sentence had my fingerprints on it. I remembered the late nights, the takeout boxes, the debates with Isolde over how to phrase our brand promise. And yet, in the most recent versions, my name wasn't there. It wasn't just missing. It had been erased. The signatures were new, the language colder, clinical. I wasn't listed as a co-founder. I wasn't even listed at all. I opened the latest version of our operating agreement, the one that outlined equity. Originally, I had 49%. I'd let her take 51% because she said it mattered more for the press to see one woman in charge. That was before I realized she'd make it look like I'd never existed. This new version, timestamped just 8 weeks ago, listed Isolde Marin as sole executive founder. No cosign, just a single name, bold and centered. At the bottom, there it was. A forged e-signature, slanted like mine, but not mine. They didn't even try that hard. I stared at it for a long time, then quietly saved the document in 3 places: my external drive, a cloud folder, and an encrypted backup. I named the folder For When They Lie. The clock glowed 3:27 a.m., but my mind wouldn't stop pacing. I pulled up a chat window and typed a name I hadn't said aloud in months: Avon. Avon had been my assistant for 3 years. She never talked much, never played the office games. But she listened. She saw more than she let on. I sent her a short message. "Are you still in town?" A blinking ellipsis. Then, "We need to talk. I have something you need to see." We met at a quiet coffee shop in the Northwest District, tucked behind a bike shop. The sun was just coming up, casting pale yellow across the brick sidewalk. Avon slid into the booth, hoodie up, no makeup, but eyes sharp as ever. She didn't hug me. Instead, she slid a thumb drive across the table and said, "I copied everything before they revoked my access." I held it gently, like it might shatter if I squeezed too hard. "They're prepping for acquisition, Odalyn," she said, voice low. "The media kits are already drafted. There's no mention of you anywhere. They want it clean, no loose ends." I nodded once. "And they think I'm the mess." She didn't correct me. Back at home, I plugged the drive into my old laptop. It buzzed louder now, like it hated being woken up from sleep. Inside the drive, presentations, internal memos, a few red-lined documents with my initials in the margins. But there was one video file. Just one. I clicked play. It was a recording of a conference call. Isolde sat center screen, arms crossed, speaking to someone just off camera. Her voice was clear, deliberate. Odalyn was never supposed to stay long-term. We gave her something to do so she'd feel useful. You know, keep her from unraveling. Something inside me cracked. I didn't feel it happen. I just realized afterward that I was crying. It wasn't rage, not yet. It was something smaller and meaner. Grief. Grief for the version of me that had believed it all meant something. that being in the background wasn't the same as being disposable. Maybe I was never supposed to be the one out front. Maybe I was always just the girl in the back room, fixing the mess, covering the gaps, staying quiet. Maybe I was always just convenient. For a while, I sat still, the kind of still where even breathing felt like an interruption. Then, almost without thinking, I moved the folder, everything I'd collected, toward the trash icon. I hovered. It would be so easy to just delete it all, to let her have the story, let her win, let myself vanish. And then, my phone buzzed. It was Camilla, just one line. "Isolde fired me today, said I reminded her of you." I stared at it. Something settled in my chest. Not anger exactly, something deeper. Resolve. I pulled the laptop closer, reopened the folder, rested my finger on the keyboard. She shouldn't have said that. She really shouldn't have said that. That morning, I sat at my small kitchen table, wrapped in an old sweater that still carried the scent of burnt coffee and lavender detergent. The apartment was quiet, except for the soft hum of my laptop and the occasional ping of emails rolling in. I opened my inbox. Still nothing. No invite, no legacy dinner pass, not even a generic, "We're thinking of you." Just silence. And then I saw it. The company's Instagram post was already trending, a full spread from the event hall downtown. Spotlights, velvet chairs, branded backdrops. In the center stood Isolde, arms crossed, smiling like she built Rome with her bare hands. The caption read, "Celebrating our founding visionary, Isolde Marin, from one woman's dream to global success. No tag, no trace of me." I didn't even feel the stab this time. It was more like a shrug from the universe. At least now they'd stopped pretending. A few minutes later, Camilla messaged me. No greeting, just a screenshot of the event's printed program, hastily snapped under bad lighting. I zoomed in. There it was, under the Origins section. After walking away from a failed collaboration, Isolde Marin found the courage to build alone, channeling her resilience into a company that now serves millions. Failed collaboration. They turned me into a footnote, a stepping stone. They've rebranded my contribution as her comeback story, I muttered, shutting my laptop before I threw it. I didn't attend the dinner. I didn't need to. The entire thing was live-streamed. My phone buzzed every few minutes with someone posting from the event, people I'd mentored, trained, or helped hire, people who smiled as if I'd never existed. Somewhere between a glass of water and pacing the hallway, my phone rang again. Mom. I stared at the screen, debating, then answered. Her voice was calm, too calm. "Odalyn, I just wanted to say you really should have been there tonight. It was beautiful. Your sister did such a good job, carrying it all." "Carrying it all?" "While I've been what, Mom? Floating?" I asked, barely keeping my voice even. She sighed, like I was being dramatic again. "Isolde's a fighter. Always has been. You've always been the gentle one. That's not a bad thing." I swallowed the weight in my throat. And what did being gentle get me? There was a pause. Then the line went dead. No goodbye. Just a click. I stood in the hallway for a long time, my phone still pressed to my ear like maybe her voice would come back and say something different. It didn't. Later that night, I walked to my closet and pulled down a slim file folder buried behind an old winter coat. OS Originals, scribbled in Sharpie across the top. Inside were the drafts, videos, memos, the raw bones of the company, from the days before we had investors or logos or anyone but each other. I hadn't looked at them in years. I also found my old navy blazer, the one I wore on our launch day. The silver teardrop pin was still fastened to the collar. I pressed my fingers around it, feeling the metal warm under my skin. "They think I'm still the girl who won't raise her voice," I whispered. Let them. Let them think that a little longer. I took Avon's USB drive from the drawer and plugged it into my laptop, not just to browse this time, but to sort, name, and prepare. I created folders. Founding documents, audio proof, contract amendments, witness statements, timeline of erasure. As I typed, my heart didn't race like before. I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I felt level, like someone who had nothing left to prove but everything to reclaim. She wanted legacy? I'll show her what legacy really means. I waited in the shadow of a neighboring building across the street from the office tower we built together. Well, supposedly together. The morning air was crisp, unusually quiet for downtown. My breath fogged the inside of my mask, but I didn't take it off. Better not to be recognized. My phone buzzed. Avon. She's out for 2 hours. I've left the drawer unlocked. That was all I needed. I slipped into the building through the parking level entrance, still had the old code memorized, and took the service elevator to the executive floor. The hallway was still polished, still too bright, but something had changed. Not in the lighting. In me. I didn't feel like a guest in my own company anymore. I felt like a collector. I didn't come to make a scene. I came to collect what was mine. Isolde's office smelled like the essential oil blend she'd bragged about to every intern who passed through. Peppermint, bergamot, and white fur. Overbearing, much like her. I ignored it and went straight to the file cabinet behind her standing desk. The bottom drawer slid open smoothly. Inside were neatly arranged folders, all labeled in her calligraphic hand. I found the one I needed within seconds. ACQ Int 2.2. The acquisition memo, the version sent to investors. I opened it, flipping past the summary until page 3. There it was. My name, Odalyn Shipley, barely visible under a digital overlay. If you squinted, you could still see the stroke of the original text before someone digitally altered it to say, Founder and CEO, Isolde Marin. Then I turned the page. Taped to the back was something that made my hands go cold and hot at once. An earlier version, handwritten, annotated in my pen. Co-founder, 51% Isolde, 49% Odalyn. My handwriting, my notes, my corrections. And below it, my original signature. She'd never shredded it. She hadn't even moved it. She thought I wouldn't come looking. I snapped photo after photo, careful to get the timestamp on the printed footer. Then I placed everything back exactly as I'd found it. She thought she deleted me, I whispered. But she never checked the paper trail. That night, after dinner at home, a reheated bowl of vegetable soup I barely tasted, I powered on the old laptop again. I opened the audio folder on Avon's drive. One labeled Board March 21 Cut 3.mp3 stood out. I hit play. The voices came in clear. It was a closed-door strategy session. I recognized 3 of them. The third one cut deepest. Isolde,